There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of Mediation, the Court of Human Relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
In this troubled world, so concerned with the elemental struggle for existence, tensions and animosities, misunderstandings are bound to arise. Now, issues that are highly complicated lend themselves to settlement, of course, only by penetrating and technical methods. But it was Elihu Root who said that in many instances, society comes nearest to attaining justice when administered along lines of the layman's understanding and instinct and habits of thought. To embarrass and involve justice with technicality recalls the story of the emperor who was said to have been suffocated with the bedclothes which were only designed to keep him warm. You are about to witness an actual mediation proceeding in which both sides, the actual persons involved, seek to determine what is just and reasonable and fair without technicality or complications or red tape. Now, there are some persons so genial, so kind, that you cannot help but feel in their presence that they do you good. It is in such a spirit that we welcome the members of today's board. One of the best informed personalities of our time, an asset to any forum on human relations, Miss Fannie Hurst. A highly respected authority in the field of counseling and of adult education, Dr. Lloyd E. Foster. An elder statesman, one of our most distinguished Americans, Mr. Norman Thomas. Now here's a case number 4224 concerning two young people facing today's world, a situation which finds parallel in the lives of many other people caught in the same twist of life. Now here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, members of the board, I am a girl, 18 years old, and have been engaged to be married for several months now. I love my fiance very much. He means the world to me. But we have run into several complications.
Now, what are you people interested in that makes you think you love him so much?
Well, we have similar backgrounds. We enjoy the same type of music, the same type of sports, even the same kind of food. I mean, how many people do you know who like the same, even spinach? And we just enjoy being together. I just love him.
And what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward not only to the day, but to the moment when we'll be married. He now tells me, for what seems to me a ridiculous and far-fetched reason, that we can't be married. This thing is just left hanging. I would like to place myself in the hands of the board, and I would like them to hear his side of the story, and I am willing to abide by their decision.
Well, now, see if we, did you say that he said you can't be married? Was that what he told you?
He has now postponed the marriage for 6 years.
And in what position does that place you?
Well, it just leaves the whole thing hanging. It seems to me that if a thing is to be done, to do it.
Well, how do you feel about this?
Well, in the beginning, Mr. Alexander, I think I should make clear that I am very much in love with this girl, and I would like to marry her. But there are certain practical objections which make a marriage at this time unwise. And
what are these objections?
Well, the first objection is that for a long time I have wanted to go to college. I've wanted a college education, and it's been a plan with my parents and myself that I have this college education. And I've been studying 2 years now at the University of North Carolina, which is only 8 miles from my home. And I want to finish college because I want to teach English, and that's what I'm majoring in.
And what do you propose to do when you finish college?
Well, after I finish college, there 4 years of the Navy facing me. It's, of course, every young man's duty now an obligation to the country to serve. And it's always, ever since I was a little child, I always wanted to go into the Navy.
Well, aside from these responsibilities and obligations and plans, what are the other obligations that you'd have as a husband that bother you?
Well, everyone knows that when a man marries a woman, he is legally and morally responsible for her support. And at the present time, as things stand now, I could not support a wife. I can barely support myself.
Well, what are you doing in New York at this time?
Well, I'm in New York because of her.
And if you care for her that much, however, notwithstanding all these other responsibilities, we understand that you want to postpone the marriage for an arbitrary term of 6 years.
Well, I do not feel that 6 years is too long to wait. If she really loves me, if we love each other as much as we say that we do, I don't think 6 years or any length of time would be too long to wait. Because it'll take at least 6 years before I can feel strong enough and capable enough to have a home and a family and all the benefits of marriage.
Do you feel there'll be opportunities to see her during the course of the 6 years?
Yes, I do. There are Christmas and other holidays, and there's summer vacation. We can be together then.
How do you feel about that?
I don't see why we can't be married even though we can't be together.
Well, I don't see the point in getting married if we can't be together. And as you say, we can probably get married and still have these vacations. I don't see the point in getting married if we're still going to be separated. That would be useless.
What is your idea of a marriage?
Well, Mr. Alexander, and I think that my idea of a marriage is when two people live together and have a home and a family and are happy. I think marriage is togetherness, and I don't see the point in a marriage if it isn't a marriage.
I understand that there is some basis for what he says, but it seems to me that if you postpone a marriage for 6 years, you might just as well postpone it for 10 or 12 years.
Are you willing to wait a reasonable length of time?
Well, certainly, by all means. I'm willing to wait a reasonable length of time, but I don't consider 6 years a reasonable amount of
Well,
time.
have you any other suggestion to make?
Well, certainly. I'd like to know if there is only one college, and one college only, that he can attend. There are several of the best colleges in the country right here in New York. I could keep my job, and he could go to school and get a part-time job. That way we'd be together. I can see what's bound to happen now. He'll go to school down there, and at frequent intervals he'll come up here at tremendous expense in time and money. That's what he's doing now.
Well,
And what would the effect of that be, coming up and going back and not being married and so forth?
It'll only lead to tension and arguments and frustration when I think it could all be eliminated, when I'm sure it could all be eliminated by doing the sensible and logical thing. Get married now.
well, as she said, Mr. Alexander, there are schools in New York State and New York City, many fine schools that I could attend. But my family and, well, myself, I've always wanted to go to this particular school in my home state because it is a good school and it is rather inexpensive, and living close to the school, commuting, living at home, these things aren't too expensive, whereas at home I can get a very fine college education and very inexpensively.
Well, because of that and these other reasons, your considered opinion is what?
Well, my opinion is that two people who are really in love should wait until they can have a home and all the benefits of home and a family. But in the society as we know it today, I do not feel that it is wrong or unheard of for two people who are really in love to enjoy the full benefits of a marriage and express their love completely.
However, he would like the full benefits of marriage, doesn't he?
Well, I guess I should have to leave this up to the board members. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not an unreligious person. I'm very religious. I do believe in certain things and certain qualifications and certain standards and way of living. But still, when two people are in love and they are forced to wait because of the social setup of today, I just don't feel in myself that it's wrong to express your love.
Just so that we understand this clearly, you feel that despite the fact that you're unable to marry now for the various reasons stated, you feel that it's perfectly proper for young people today in our present society and with the present mores for you to get the full benefits of marriage, and therefore you want to wait 6 years.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hurst?
As I understand it, you are asking to reap all the pleasures of this marriage with this lovely young lady without assuming the responsibilities that go with it? Is that the thing in a nutshell? It sounds that way to me. I'd like a little clarification if I'm wrong.
Well, I suppose that the way you put it would be correct. It sounds a little blunt and a little cold to me.
I'm afraid it is, but it's a little bit factual unless you have something to say that will qualify the bluntness. And
Well,
the
why don't you
coldness.
tell Miss Hurst how you feel about it?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm young. I feel that two people who are 20, well, that's how old I am anyway, I think it's that love is, to me, is something beautiful and idealistic. And love and marriage do go together. That's true.
In our civilization,
Yes.
yes.
But today, I just don't feel that it's considered wrong to express your love completely. And that's what it would be. I don't see anything wrong about it. To me, it's beautiful.
Well, I don't think we need go here into the issues of the rightness or the wrongness of it. I think it's an issue, as I see it now. Here is this young lady. Of course, theoretically, I'm glad you're asking for 6 years, because I think it'll be much better if you wait, and in those 6 years, a great deal can happen to your mutual chemistry that may be to your advantage and your advantage. But that is beside the point. That this moment, you are wanting this thing. You are wanting it for free. And this young lady is willing to take it on with all of the responsibilities that go with it. I wish that you could think your way through this and look at it squarely in the face and see if you still want it. This young man wants his education where he wants it. Following up that, he figures on 4 years in the Navy. The responsibility of taking care of a wife, he feels he is not prepared, and I think that that's a pretty level attitude about it. But when you add these things up, you don't celebrate, you don't think it through beyond that. Then your emotions come, is that it? You look so intelligent that I wish you had a combination of the two.
That might be it, but as I said, I am willing to wait a reasonable length of time, but 6 years is a little out of the question. I mean, it...
Well, as I said in the beginning, I think if you do decide to wait the 6 years, that you won't have any trouble at the end of those 6 years, because a great many things are going to happen to you both. And if I were this young man, I wouldn't take the chance of 6 years with a young lady like you.
Mr. Thomas?
I think if I were talking to either of you or both of you, as if you were my own children, I'd say something like this. I think there'd be a good deal to be said for waiting 1 year, 2 years to finish college. I think that there are advantages in the old-fashioned notion of finishing college before you're married. In my time, for instance, you would be expelled from college if it was discovered you were married. I don't believe in that. But I think there's something to be said for finishing college. But very frankly, from what I've seen of life, if you start out now that you are going to be engaged 6 years, the chances are, with your point of view about the privileges and all the rest of it, that at the end of the 6 years you wouldn't marry. Too many things would happen. And I think you would just spoil something rather lovely. I may be old-fashioned, but that's what I think. My strong advice would therefore be that you wait for a year or two and finish college. You go on working and then marry. I happen to have known a good many people, one person very dear to me, who married in the Navy and who had a very happy marriage. In modern times, girls do work. I presume your fiance would work anyway. I know lots of girls who like nowadays to work to help the family get started. And if the girl says she'd like that, I think you're asking a great deal to take the pleasure from her, to say, I want everything that marriage gives except the feeling of security, except the things that have gone from time immemorial into marriage. I would
Mr.
strongly
Thomas.
urge, therefore, that you consider waiting a year, 2 years, perhaps till you're through college, and then get married, because I do not know any naval service that would make it impossible for you to see a lot of each other and to carry on, even to begin a family.
Well, we'd like to ask this young man this question. Isn't it true that according to United States law, you only have to serve in the military service for 2 years? Why the 4?
This is a very strange setup. It seems that if you are called or inducted into the armed forces, you only serve 2 years. But the chances, if I were inducted, would be very slim that I would go into the Navy, more likely the Army, which I had rather not go into.
Well, I think it's apparent to the members of this board that you've thought that all out, and that you're taking the long view of that, I mean the outside view, which is 4 years, that you won't be called, that you're going to get your college degree, that you're going to do everything else that you want, but you're just putting your marriage on the side. That's sort of on the shelf.
Well, I don't know. Do any of you feel that it is wrong to want to have a marriage and still want the other benefits of life, or the other
Well,
plans
Miss
of life?
Hurst has tried to emphasize that she thought it was tremendously wrong. Have you said so, Mr. Thomas? That was the point. This young man is asking for an answer. And
I've lived for a good many years, and I don't know any time in life that you can get something as precious as the right kind of marriage is without some kind of a price. The things you get for nothing aren't too valuable. I don't think it's possible for you to have the kind of a marriage that you yourself say you want, when you so obviously say everything is subordinate to my desire to serve out a certain plan of life for 6 years. A plan of life, by the way, that we're not asking you to give up. I see no reason in our time why you can't finish college, stand high in it, do what you want to do in the Navy, and do it loyally and well, and still be married, as long as your girl feels as strongly as she does that she wants to cooperate with you, but wants to have the security, the happiness, the blessing that comes with marriage. I think that the 2-year wait, since you're both young and you're still in college, might be advisable.
which all adds up to the fact that you don't think that morally or any other way this young man's desire is justifiable.
I'd put it that way, yes.
Dr.
This
Foster?
would be my verdict, and it's a verdict I'd give my own son.
One would covet for this very attractive and intelligent young woman and young man a full measure of happiness. And the issue that they are setting forth is tremendously important for millions of young people. And we share in sympathy with their problem. But the trial marriage that is suggested has penalties attached to it. The possible damaging psychologically and emotionally of personality. If children issue during this period, their situation is jeopardized, and they may find in time that this trial marriage leads to disillusionment and cynicism. I want to stress a practical solution that has been suggested by Mr. Thomas, namely, that they agree to wait for 2 years. This young man will complete his college education and get his degree. He will have achieved a goal, that they then marry, that he enter the Navy. If they have children then, there will be government assistance in regard to the family, and they may work out together the years that he will be in the Navy. This seems to me to be a practical and solid and commendable solution.
We want to ask this young woman, I don't think you referred to this, Mr. Thomas has suggested the possibility. What would you do if this young man attended college, you were married, would you work?
Well, the plan would be, I'm not sticking to any set way. As long as we were married, I would be happy and I would be faithful and I would be willing to work. But the ideal plan would be to be together, which would mean his changing schools. But if that is impossible...
Now, we're talking about his changing schools and you having a full-time job and working.
Yes,
So
I would.
Well, that was the question.
Yes, by all means, I would keep the job, because...
Would you do it in the Navy, too? Would you work if it were necessary, Paul?
If it were necessary, certainly.
I know people right now who manage somehow to, girls who manage somehow to work rather happily while their husbands are in the Army or Navy, moving around even.
That's right.
I gave a letter of introduction to one such very nice girl who is doing that very thing to help her get a job.
Well, Mr. Thomas, you've been an observer of the passing scene for many years. You've seen many generations come and go. You've seen changes in our customs and mores. You talk about being expelled from college because you were going to be married. Is anybody expelled from college today for not being married but getting the benefits of it?
I don't know. Some colleges, yes. I couldn't agree more with what Mr. Foster has said on that particular subject. And I speak not only from observation but from experience. It's the happiest thing in the world to be married under the conditions that Mr. Foster was suggesting. And it isn't happy otherwise. There's more insecurity than you think.
May I point out that I think it's a bit unfair to ask this young man to leave his college and locate in a new college with 2 years to go. I think that would be asking a great deal, and I doubt if this young woman realizes the dislocation that would come to him. I think the marriage has greater promise of success if he continues there and finishes where he wants to go. He'll get the degree from the university that he likes and that he's chosen. Then the marriage and the 4 years in the Navy.
May I say that if I were going to the University of North Carolina, I'd hate to give it up. I've been there, and it's a kind of an oasis in my mind in some country that needs oases.
Yes. Well, we address the respondent. Are you prepared to say, and it's unfair, of course, to put pressure on you, but you're a very frank young man, and I don't think you have many inhibitions. Are you prepared to say that out of deference to this board and the common sense and mature judgment which they exercise, do you accept the decision of this board that as far as you can control it and as far as you know at this point that you would graduate from college and plan to marry this girl at that time?
Well, before I say anything, could I bring up one point? Would this young lady be prepared to leave New York, which she has told me many times she so dearly loves? If I went into the Navy and if we are going to be together while I am in the Navy, she would have to give up a few things herself.
Well, I wonder whether we can settle this matter on the basis of geography right now. I mean, are there any other aspects than that which we might consider? Whether or not she leaves New York, I mean, you're not going to give her up if she doesn't leave New York, are you?
No.
Well, then what is your answer?
What is my answer?
Well, aren't you the young man that's involved?
Yes, sir. Well, I would marry her anyway, because, you know, well, she's once in a lifetime, and I wouldn't want to give her up.
Well, the board is certainly not in favor of this couple rushing into a marriage under any circumstances, and certainly before a marriage takes place, this young man should be in a position, according to this board, where he has established himself, at least in some measure, and can assume the obligations of a husband. But surely there is considerable more to marriage than the romantic aspects. And having said that, the board is unanimous in its opinion that the establishment of an arbitrary time of 6 years is not reasonable from the young woman's point of view, that the goal certainly, if there are good intentions all around, can be brought somewhat closer than that, and the board does not feel that the interim arrangement of closeness suggested by the young man is a possible substitute for a formal marriage or is the thing to do. Now, that is the unanimous opinion of this board. We hesitate, of course, to place pressure of any kind on this young man under these rather extraordinary circumstances. But since you, sir, voluntarily appeared, and said you would abide by the decision of the board, we will expect, consistent with all reason, that you will accept their decision, and in behalf of the board, I want to tender our congratulations.
May I say to the young lady that there's a verse that I like when the Navy time comes. It says, "Whither I go, I will go." I think that's the basis of a very good marriage for you.
I think so too.
As we express our thanks to our mediators and look forward to another session of the Court of Human Relations, I think of the words of the sage. The measure of a man's life is not to be judged by its cleverness or by its length, but by its usefulness, its goodwill, and by its integrity.